Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Back to Basics session on location intelligence. My name is Ruslan, and I'm glad to be joining you for this webinar today. Over the past few months, we've done quite a few deep dives into specific industry use cases, but today I really want to take a step back and just focus on the fundamentals, what location intelligence really is, why it matters, and how making it AI ready can help your business make smarter decisions in the next few years. Now, whenever people ask me in a private conversation, just knowing what I do for a living, so what exactly is location intelligence? I like to keep it simple. I tell them it is really all about taking the where, the spatial or geographic context, and connecting it to the who, the what, and the why of your business. And when you do that, you're not longer just looking at the raw data. Instead, you're actually unlocking meaningful insights that are specific and uniquely important for your business and will help you guide decisions forward. And in this session, we will revisit those fundamentals and then explore how preparing both location data and the tools behind your data for the age of AI don't just support innovation. In fact, it accelerates it, drives smarter, faster, more accurate decisions in the long term. We'll also look at some of the primary use cases for location intelligence that we at Precisely help our customers with. And my goal today is make this an engaging session, not just for someone who is just discovering location intelligence for the first time, but also for someone who's been following the space closely for years. And finally, I'll also be leaving you with a few helpful links to solutions and resources so you can take the next steps and put these ideas into practice. Without further ado, let's jump right in. Now, if location intelligence is all about connecting the where with the who and what and the why, the next natural question is, where does all that location data actually come from? And the truth is, location data is truly everywhere. And it's not just addresses or maps. It's also boundaries that define our neighborhoods and the trade areas. It's the demographics that tell us who lives in those areas. It is device signals that show how people move. It is imagery, properties, places, streets, and even risk factors that help organizations understand the context behind locations. And all of these pieces on their own are just data points. But when you bring them together, they paint a much richer picture of reality. And that is why it's no surprise that according to our latest Data Integrity Trends and Insights report, 67% of organizations are already using location data in business-critical use cases. This is what makes location intelligence such a powerful enabler. It is everywhere, and when it is used correctly, it can answer many, many important questions that are key for your business. Questions like, where are my competitors? And where is my target market? Can I deliver on time? Can I service my customers effectively? Now is probably a good time to point out some most common misconceptions about location intelligence that I see every day. You see, these aren't just abstract or nice to have questions. They're very real, everyday decisions that businesses make. And each of them has a location component. When you can bring together the right data, the context, and intelligence, you move from guesswork to confident data-driven answers a lot faster. But here's the reality. So many organizations are still trying to answer those questions with the wrong tools. On the left-hand side, you see what that looks like. They would have traditional BI dashboards, endless Excel spreadsheets, maybe even focus groups or word of mouth. These methods tell you what happened, like quarterly revenue by a branch, but they don't tell you why the branch performed the way it did or what to do in the next quarter to achieve desired performance. It is very much like trying to navigate a city with just last month's receipts. You know what you spent and where, but you don't really know where you're headed. Now, compare that to the right side. When you bring in the business-friendly spatial analytics and trusted location data, combine them together, suddenly you're not just looking at numbers in a table. You're seeing the bigger picture. You can spot where competitors are clustered. You can understand neighborhood demographics, assess walkability, and even flag high-risk areas for future expansion. And you don't have to manually source this location data for each analysis you run either. It is the difference between looking in the rear view mirror and having a clear map that guides your next move. And speaking of maps, this is the last and probably the biggest misconceptions I'd like to highlight today with regards to location intelligence. In reality, some of the most valuable applications of location intelligence don't even require a map-based interface at all. Think about the operational side. Location data can run quietly in the background to minimize manual input errors, ensure analytics downstream are reliable, and streamline data enrichment with relevant factors without anyone ever needing to look at a map. And then there is the analytical side. With the right intelligence baked in, marketing teams can automatically tailor campaigns based on location. Sales can be equipped with insights about territories and customers. Strategy teams can forecast revenue and market share. All of that is powered by location intelligence, but it does not necessarily surface as a map. And when you combine these operational analytical benefits, the value really multiplies. You're accelerating time to value, you reduce costs, you preserve your brand reputation, and ultimately drive customer satisfaction. So yes, maps are a great way to visualize and tell the story, but the real power of location intelligence is what happens behind the scenes. When you turn raw data into context, and then you make your decision based on the context location intelligence provides. So far, we've talked about the fundamentals and key misconceptions about location intelligence, but let's bring it down to real-world impact. So these are just some of the core buckets of use cases I wanted to share with you that we see our customers applying location intelligence to every day. And those are things like risk assessment, whether that's for insurance, whether it's for lending, or even environmental risk. It's site selection, which is all about making smarter decisions on where to expand or where to consolidate. You see network planning and optimization, which is all about understanding coverage, capacity, and efficiency. Location intelligence also shows up in product and service delivery a lot because you need to ensure the right offerings reach the right markets at the right time. In targeted marketing and advertising, where it's all about getting more precise about who to reach to and where to maximize the effectiveness of your campaigns. And in supply chain risk management, you can build resilience against disruptions by knowing exactly how geography impacts your operations. And I'm not going to take us through a deep dive into each of these use cases today. Instead, what I want to do is I want to zoom out and highlight really the common thread that runs through them and some of the key components required from a location intelligence solutions you would onboard to be effective in today's market. And the most common thread we see across the vast majority of these use cases is money. When organizations invest in location intelligence, it pays for itself many, many times over. And not just in cost savings, but in unlocking revenue that would otherwise stay hidden as well. This example here comes from a major telecommunications provider. And on the surface, their challenge might sound super simple. Just knowing which addresses could actually be served. If you're anything like me, you've surely been on the receiving end of this transaction, trying to start a new internet service after moving to a new location. Well, on the provider side, misalignment between customer locations and available services was costing them roughly $1,000 per serviceable address. If you think about what address implies, it's not always a single family home or an apartment. Sometimes it's a hospital. Sometimes it's a multi-unit building. Sometimes it's a warehouse that doesn't even require service. And on top of that, many of these addresses weren't even showing up in the proper systems on time, which meant missed revenue opportunities across different departments in that telecommunication provider. So now the impact of solving that problem was really massive, right? Because of the expense that each address brings. With enhanced serviceability modeling powered by Precisely, they were able to add 60,000 net new subscribers and cross-sell an additional 20,000 into internet service. So in total, that translated into $90 million in new revenue. And what made that all possible wasn't just one tool or one feature, which is a really important thing I want to highlight today. It was the full stack of location intelligence working together. You can think of data quality to make sure addresses were accurate and trustworthy, and the contact information was accurate and trustworthy. The geo-addressing to tie those addresses to precise locations, the data enrichments to layer in serviceability attributes, the demographics and boundaries, and finally the spatial analytics to really bring it all together and model serviceability at scale. This is the real power of location intelligence, not just a one-off report or a map. It's really about the building a foundation of location data management that can fuel business decisions long-term and eliminate costly errors as the operations run forward. The next example I wanted to show you is all about last mile delivery, or in this case, also the last 20 meters. And can I just say, is there anything worse for a brand's image than when my pizza shows up cold just because the driver could not find my apartment for the past 15, 20 minutes? Yet for delivery companies, that final stretch can make or break the customer experience, and this is just a daily reality. If the driver cannot find the right building entrance or unit number, the delivery time will spike and the customer frustration grows. With so many options for delivery companies on the market, it's taken a really high risk that your customers are going to move on to a different service. Here is where we come in. What we help our customers with is the complete address capture. When you're not just collecting a street address, you're capturing the full context, the apartment complex, the unit number, the property type. Then with detail and context enrichment, we also will make sure that the drivers know exactly where to go with additional context provided by property features. In this example, the result would be food in hand in just 45 minutes after the order was placed, as opposed to an hour and a half. Yeah, that's not just a successful delivery in an isolated case. It is decreased delivery times, happier customers, and a better app experience over thousands of daily deliveries. And many of those delivery errors happen on the address entry point when the customer is typing in an address, they're really hungry, they really want to get their food right away. A lot of those mistakes happen, and then those poor addresses linger over your systems. This is something we want to help our customers with as well. And now is the perfect time to move into the demo lounge. So for today's demo, I'd like to show you an example of a risk assessment use case. And as a part of the demo, I will also be highlighting this address autocomplete feature that I just mentioned, along with the entire location intelligence and data enrichment stack we were talking through during this webinar. So let's jump to the screen share. Okay. We are currently in the Precisely Data Integrity Suite. At the end of this session, I'm going to leave some links for you to get started and explore it for yourself. But for now, we're currently in the spatial analytics service of the Data Integrity Suite, and this is a pre-built risk analysis location report that we're going to use to walk through a risk assessment use case. And there are a few things I want to highlight in this report. I'm just going to go step by step. So first things first, when you jump into the report, the first thing you do is you type in an address. And a really quick thing I wanted to show you is when you type in the address, you will see how we're pulling the data from the address autocomplete API. And what happens here is when the customer is typing in the address, there are many options offered to alleviate some of those manual input errors. And this doesn't only have to be a part of this specific report. This feature can also be embedded as an API into your web app as well. Okay, now that we're all loaded up, we can find ourselves in a location report. I mentioned earlier that no report should really have a mapping element, but it can be really valuable for someone like an underwriter to jump in and kind of know whereabouts of a location. But as you can see, it still has the same breadth of analytical and operational capability I was talking about earlier. And we're pulling in a lot of information that is invaluable to an underwriter. Just for example, many risks that are associated with critical environmental risks, such as hail and winds and tornadoes and wildfires. In addition, all of this data that's sitting in this report is interconnected. A lot of the addresses that you'll see have an associated parcel. A lot of those addresses also have more than one apartment unit and so on. And so this is all the things that you can discover as you go through the report. And the best part is you don't need to have background in geography to pull this information together. It is a very business-friendly interface that can help users, not just in one department of your organization, get that location insight that they need. So we just looked at a few examples of how location intelligence delivers value. And in all of those use cases, you'll see that they were powered by the same foundational building blocks that we believe that a location solution needs in order to be effective. And it starts with geo-addressing. This is about making sure that your addresses are verified, standardized, and cleansed. We also, during this process, assign a hyper-accurate coordinates and a unique ID to each location, so you can consistently link and analyze it across systems. This is where the data enrichment comes in. Once you have clean, trusted locations, you need to add context. And we saw in some of those examples, that could be risks, that could be demographics, that could be traffic, whatever it is. That means you need to layer in both standard data like boundaries and points of interest, and dynamic data like demographics or even weather patterns that shift over time. Enrichment turns raw locations into business-ready insights, so it's definitely not something you can miss out on. And then finally, there is spatial analytics. This is where you start to ask more advanced questions, aggregating and querying data by distance, density, or geometry, creating derivative attributes, and exposing insights through dashboards and visualizations. A lot of the times you saw in our examples, those are not all manual processes. Some of those are just running under the hood, which is very different from how location intelligence and spatial analytics were done, let's say 20 years back. So this is what allows you to go from data points that are existing across your system and the data that is really fueling your business operations to putting it to work and fueling it towards decision making. And together, these three blocks are what make location intelligence trustworthy, scalable, and valuable across organizations. It's a sum of pieces, and without them, you're left without a good understanding of your business, and instead you're left with fragmented data and guesswork. And with them, you have a foundation for smarter, faster, and more confident decisions. Now let's quickly shift gears and talk more about artificial intelligence, because for many organizations, I believe this is where the conversation naturally goes next or originates in. The reality is, chances are you're already invested in AI. This is a 2024 stat, so the 91% of leading businesses have ongoing AI initiatives. Numbers definitely increased since then. Whether it's chatbots, AI assistants, AI-powered workflows, recommendations, or even foundation model training, most organizations are putting AI to work in one way or another. It is easy to see why. AI promises operational efficiency, data-driven engagement, and powerful business impact. New ideas and new ways of working that give companies a competitive edge. But here's the challenge. While most organizations are investing in AI, very few have the data foundation ready to support it. You saw how data affects location intelligence. You can imagine what impact it has on AI. Only 12% report their data is actually ready for AI initiatives. That gap leads directly to the problems we're all familiar with. Bias, hallucinations, poor model performance, inaccurate predictions. If you looked into AI over the past few months and been keeping your hand on the pulse, you've encountered those all, I'm sure. And the impact of bad data on AI is very real. If you don't have the quality, trusted, context-rich data, you risk bias creeping in, which can lead to terrible things like ageism and sexism and racial bias showing up in outputs. You'll face inaccuracy, hallucinations, AI failures, and you will deal with irrelevance, which is very important for your location intelligence initiatives. Models that lack context will produce weak insights and will miss the nuance that's critical to decision making. This is why location intelligence matters so much in the A conversation, and I believe they're so interconnected. It's not about maps and enrichment. It's really about ensuring that your artificial intelligence has the high quality, context-rich data to work with. Even if it already exists in your other parts of your business, it may not have made its way to your AI interfaces. And the outcome can lack the trustworthiness, the relevance, and the usefulness that your current location intelligence applications have. For instance, let's look at an example where location context really matters for AI initiatives. If you only have the address, a dispatch system might send crews or drivers with a very rough estimate. In this case, about 15 minutes to dispatch and arrive. But we all know that's not the full story. And the difference of just a couple of meters can mean delays, wrong turns, or even the wrong equipment being sent. But when you add geocoding, you save time right away. No wasted minutes confirming which Springfield road is correct. If you add property features, you can now ensure that the right equipment and the crews are sent immediately without guesswork. And with routing, you avoid trial and error, blocked roads, and delays, shaving off another few minutes. But altogether, the result is all-powerful. You'll save 50 to 70% time in response to critical emergencies. And that's not just efficiency. It's in the scenarios like emergency response or utilities or last mile delivery, that time difference can have a huge impact on customer satisfaction, safety, and ultimately the brand experience. I think this is a perfect illustration of why context matters in AI. Without it, you're just working off surface level data. And to bring this point home, let's look at a real-world example from Generali Real Estate, one of Europe's leading property investors. Generali manages more than 37 billion in real estate assets. And their challenge was that traditional real estate metrics weren't telling the full story. In fact, when they looked back over 7 years of asset performance, 60% of the change in value couldn't be explained using conventional data points alone. That's a huge blind spot when you're trying to manage billions in assets. And to solve this, they built City Forward, a real estate location intelligence platform powered by Precisely. The platform integrates data from over 30 machine learning models and taps into more than 800 different variables. Everything from socio-demographics and consumer behaviors to mobility, ESG data, satellite imagery, and more. What this shows is that without context, there is no such thing as AI in the field of location intelligence. It is the combination of accurate data, enrichment, and advanced spatial analytics that gives AI the context it needs to explain, predict, and ultimately guide better investment decisions. To support valued customers like Generali, we recently rolled out the Model Context Protocol, or MCP server from Precisely. Here's the challenge. Most AI solutions don't natively understand or support spatial data, yet spatial context is absolutely critical for informed business decisions. And without it, AI is working blind. Our solution bridges that gap. MCP will translate natural language queries from AI solutions into API requests back to Precisely, and then converts those responses back into natural language. That means when you ask questions like, hey, what's the wildfire risk for 12 Forest Lane? You'll get back an answer that was enriched with trusted spatial context and is ready to use. As you can imagine, the benefits of it are huge. We offer seamless integration with leading AI interfaces, high-value, location-aware capabilities embedded directly into your AI ecosystem. And the coolest thing is you don't need your developers to understand our APIs because MCP will handle the complexity behind the scenes so your team can focus on innovation. On this slide, I'm just going to leave you with a QR code link into the blog that walks through the steps on how you can get set up with an MCP server. Of course, that's just one example. For many organizations, the AI-powered location intelligence journey really begins with a trusted foundation of data management. And that's exactly what the Data Integrity Suite is designed to deliver. The Suite Foundation provides the building blocks that connect and accelerate all Data Integrity Suite services, allowing you to perform the non-negotiables like securely accessing your data, cataloging and understanding it, and leveraging AI-powered capabilities to help design and run processes to improve it. The suite runs wherever your data lives, whether it's on-prem, in the cloud, or both. And all of these services are provided through a single user-friendly experience with AI copilots supporting you along the way. So whatever your data and location data needs are, whether you're just looking for location intelligence initiatives, or you're also looking more holistically on the management aspect of your location data, the Data Integrity Suite will, I'm sure, be perfect for you. And on this slide, I just want to share a link for you to get started. This is a link to our developer portal where you can get your API key and secret and get started with the Data Integrity Suite. I hope this session was informative and helped bridge the gap between location intelligence and AI. And I would like to thank everybody for joining. My name was Ruslan Sultanov. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or contact our experts on precisely.com. With that, I'd like to thank again everybody for joining, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.